Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another streaming live episode of At the Eyepiece. We are recording here July 8th, about 11:20 p.m. local time to where I'm at, broadcasting here from Middle Tennessee. Right now, I just can't pass it up. Galaxies. I got another live image here of M64, which is just gorgeous. It's the Black Eye Galaxy, and I'll leave it up here for you to enjoy. Let's go find out a little bit of information here about this galaxy. Once again, you may notice the background program. We are using a program called Sky Safari. And it's a great program for iOS, Android, and Mac. And that's what I'm broadcasting from, is a Mac, by the way. And it's just superb as far as being able to computer control the telescope, being able to bring up this information here. Um, it, what a great view here. I'm just glad that we have conditions that are nice enough to share this view. So as you can see there, I've added to the window, just for those of you that are watching, we have added the exposure information, 45-second exposure, and right now we have 12 of these stacked. So yeah, I didn't start the stream immediately up as soon as I started bringing in the image, but it's pretty good nonetheless. So 45-second exposure. So we can't get much more live than that, folks, right here at the eyepiece. So let's see. It's a spiral galaxy. What you're seeing there is it's not quite face on to us, slightly at an angle. Looks like it was discovered in 1780, and actually it was discovered in 1789 by Edward Peugeot, and later on with Charles Messier here. At least this is what our Sky Safari app. It's in the constellation Coma Berenices. And if you were to go outside, in fact, let's switch right now to getting an idea of where we are with the telescope, in case you too wanted to go outside. Point your telescope to M64 to see what you can see. So we are looking just about due west right now. And if you were to find the Big Dipper there in the upper right-hand corner, you can see that pretty easily. The largest star here, the brightest star I should say, is Arcturus. And that may help guide you down to the very small, dim constellation of Coma Berenices. Let me see if I can add constellation lines, maybe. Let's see. Traditional lines. That's more of a figurine. Well, we won't do that. And we'll just leave it as is with that information. There we go. We'll bring up our perfect little picture here. So if you can find Arcturus, you will go further west, looking forward down, and you will see this triangular pattern of stars. That is Coma Berenices. Diadem, and Gamma Coma Berenices. Doesn't look like there's a secondary name. So you can see the Black Eye Galaxy is not quite in the middle, pretty much a little bit closer to diadem there if we were to look. Now this might help you a bit if we were to go ahead and show our Telrad circle. A Telrad is a well, it's actually a non-power device. Many astronomers have those on their telescopes to go ahead, and it projects this red circle, series of circles, onto the night sky behind it, so it'll aid in pointing your telescope. That is what a Telrad. Another one is a reflex sight is Rigel Quick Finder. A lot of red scopes comes with red dot finders as well. So here we are. So let's go back to our live image here of M64, and let me bring in the information back there so that we can go ahead and we gotta click it. There we are. Certainly is well known among amateur astronomers. 17 million light years away. 17 million light years away. Now, in addition to this, we are going to take a look at a couple of globular clusters. I think last time we were broadcasting live here on the Eyepiece channel, we pretty much kept to maybe almost all galaxies, and then there was a time that we did a broadcast for planetary, but I think last time we did it mostly galaxies. So we are getting a bit of a late start here this evening. I think one galaxy we did not view last time, and I think we'll go to that next, is going to be M101. This is another spiral galaxy, but this one is face on to us. So it should be coming through. It's more difficult, frankly, to bring in some of the details, but you'll see a pretty nice spiral structure, I think, here with M101 coming up next. And you know we are live too because you can hear the dogs barking in the background here from our little observatory in the back. You might say, well, where's your telescope? Well, the telescope is connected, and this is in another video series here on the channel here at the Eyepiece if you want to see the actual observatory. But it's basically right on the other side of this computer through a door, and that is where the telescope is housed, and we control it from in here with our air conditioning, etc. We keep things we're kind of spoiled, I guess. All right, let's... where was I trying to go here? You continue to enjoy the view. Let me minimize my camera here. You don't have to see my mug the whole time. Twenty-two stacks so far, so that means we've taken 22 45-second exposures of M64. You can see clearly why they call it the Black Eye Galaxy. Really strutting its stuff there tonight. Okay, I think that's enough for M64. We are going to stop our exposure. And we are going to move the telescope next to M101. And you can see this is a pre-image here of that galaxy up in our Stellarium program. Let's go ahead and stop our tracking. And we are now slewing the telescope. Once we know that we are almost there, we will go ahead and start our guide again. Now the image is going to go black here while we get another round of exposures here for M101. But let me update the information here on the screen for you. There we go. We are guiding and the dogs are barking. And let's go ahead and get seeing what we can see here. So M101, if you were to go outside, is pretty easy to find, I think, because if you find the Big Dipper, so you're facing to the northwest now, all right, and you want to spot the Big Dipper, pretty easy constellation to see usually. And this double star here is Mizar, okay, and then the last star is Alkaid in the handle of the Big Dipper, and you should be able to go up. That's probably what, 2 fields of view for a Telrad finder, just about in the middle between Mizar and Alkaid. 2 fields of view, maybe a little bit more, and you'll be able to spot M101. So let's go ahead and see what our image is pulling up. And there it is. There it is up on the screen here. Actually, we're going to do that one. There we go. So here is M101. This is as live as you can get, folks, for astronomy, because that is a single 45-second exposure right there. 45 seconds is not a long time, but you can definitely get to see some of the spiral structure coming into play here. Now, the image itself, as it stacks, will start to smooth out a bit. You can see that actually now, since we got 2 stacks, it's starting to look a little bit better. I'm going to adjust the darkness just a bit down, and that should be very, very good. All right. This was discovered in 1881, also by Charles Messier, by the way. And I always like to look up the distance. And it looks like it's 27 million light years away. Look at the beautiful spiral structure there of this face-on galaxy. See some of the clumps there and some of the arms. Those are no doubt very active star-forming regions in that galaxy there. Just beautiful, beautiful stuff. It's also called, by the way, the Pinwheel Galaxy for obvious reasons. So I'm going to let you just sit back and enjoy the view here as it gets a little bit better and better as we add more stacks. as you can see, M101 is pretty big. M64 certainly didn't take up this much of our field of view as M101. And you can think about that for a moment. So the previous galaxy that we saw was M64, and that was only 17 million light years away. This is much larger than M64 was on our screen, and indeed it's 27 million light years away, so it's a pretty big galaxy. Got about 4 stacks so far. So that means we've taken 4 45-second exposures so far. Actually, we've taken a couple more than that, but it looks like only 4. Now we've had 5 of those 7 have stacked. So 2 of those had been rejected for some reason, probably just tracking or guiding. Oh, hey there, Evan. I always forget to start the chat up. Just wanted to swing on in and see how the channel was going here. So if I do miss anyone on live chat, I do apologize. If I do fail to catch you, you know, and you've got a comment or you've got a question, pop it on in there on the comment section, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Just got a lot of screens going on, and I can't quite keep track of everything. Oh, you're welcome. You know, it's funny. I was going to go out, I think, a little bit later, if I'm not mistaken. Well, actually, no. I was going to go out here in a little while with a pair of binoculars. My scope can't get to the north very well, and I'm looking through a lot of light pollution to my north. But I was going to go out there with a pair of binoculars and see if I track it down. How about yourself? Have you been able to catch Comet Pan-STARRS? I think it was 2017 S3 Comet Pan-STARRS. All right, we've got a really, really nice view here of M101. I'm going to save that real quick. I like to put these out on social media once we get them all done. Oops. I can click the right button here. All right, so we are, let's see, we are indeed right now looking towards the north right now, right near the handle of Ursa Major, or the Big Bear. I'm sorry, the Ursa Major, of course, is the constellation here. The Little Dipper is pretty much, let's see where I keep forgetting. There it is. Okay, there's the Little Dipper. And Ursa Major is the Big Dipper. All right, we are going to move on here for a moment. Let me just go ahead and get a couple of things done. I'll leave this image up on the screen here, mute down, and I'll be right back. Enjoy the view of M101. Okay, I am back, and no, looks like the comet's too low actually right now, only 8 degrees above my north horizon, and I can't get that low because of the houses. So I'm not going to be able to go out with binoculars and see that comet tonight myself. So we'll have to see what it goes. However, let's continue on with our trek through the universe here at the Eyepiece. So say goodbye to M101. We're going to switch gears and we're going to go to a nebula. And I will wait to show you this here so that I don't let the cat out of the bag, so to speak. And make sure we are stop tracking. Okay. So we are swinging around. Now this is in our own galaxy. So I will say that we are going to be looking towards very close to the center, not quite the center, but very close to the center of our own galaxy here. And we are going to be looking at something called a nebula. And let's go ahead and I'm just going to do a very quick exposure to see if I'm close to being centered or if I have to make some adjustment. Okay, we're going to adjust it a little bit. So as you can see here, we are looking at the Trifid Nebula. So we are going to adjust our scope a little bit further down, just a tad here. So let me, bear with me here. Okay, so even with the 1 second exposure, wow, that really is quite far. Even with a 1 second exposure like we're looking at right now, you can clearly see that there's something definitely there. Now, we are using a monochrome camera, black and white basically camera, okay? So we aren't going to get some of these vivid colors that you can possibly get with a color camera with this particular type of object, but we are still going to have a pretty good view, at least I think. So let's go up to, let's do a 45-second exposure. So coming up is M20, or the Trifid Nebula, right here live at the Eyepiece. So let's go ahead and look at our image here. So that's a color shot of what we are going to be seeing here very shortly, once I start the exposure up. There we are. Now, let's go back to our Sky Safari app while we are waiting for our view to come on up. And basically, we are looking almost due south. That green line there is what we call, in astronomical terms, the meridian, an imaginary line that splits the sky in half, basically. So as you can see, we are looking almost due south, and we are looking towards our own galaxy now, the Milky Way galaxy. And the bright object there to the left of where we are looking here at the Trifid Nebula is indeed Saturn. Now, I don't have the telescope set up for the planetary setup, but we're doing deep sky right now. Let's go back to our view. Oh, and there we are, the Trifid Nebula. So let me adjust our exposure here, because we are indeed getting a little bit overexposed. There we go. Look at that. Look at the contrast that's coming through on our 45-second exposure. Really picking it up. And again, I really like that the orientation almost matches exactly to the image there on the left from the Sky Safari program. So this is associated with emission nebula as well as some reflection nebula there. The bluish is usually reflection, whereas the red is emission nebula. And let's go ahead and see what we can... that's pretty interesting. That was one of the first objects imaged in 1899. Look at that. 1899 they took that shot. You can see the Lagoon Nebula here and the Trifid Nebula. We'll go to the Lagoon Nebula next. This is an object that you should really be able to see with a small scope, even a pair of binoculars, 7x50, if you have a good dark sky. Look at the beautiful way that we've got some contrast now going. It really makes the interior of this nebula pop. Trying to tweak it to get the best image. Here we go. And that's 3 stacks. So enjoy the view here of the Trifid Nebula. And once again, we are looking, if we were to point up, Trifid Nebula, that's probably, I'm thinking 30 or so degrees, 36 degrees, let's say 36 degrees above the horizon. Okay, actually it's 31 degrees above the horizon. Due south right now. You can see the constellation Scorpius here over to the right. I know it's kind of a busy image. Let's see if we can change some of this. Name density maybe down. Knock the name density down a bit for the watchers, and there we go. So I took a few settings off there, maybe to make it a little bit easier for you to get your own orientation. I mean, it's pretty easy to find right now. If you were to go out there and find Saturn, it's the brightest star towards our south right now, just above the teapot that forms Sagittarius. And if you scoot just a few degrees west of Saturn, you will come across these bright regions. One of these is the Trifid Nebula, which we are on right now. And we will be scooting down to see the Lagoon Nebula here next. But this is the beautiful shot of the Trifid Nebula. The Milky Way is always a beautiful area of the night sky to scrutinize, and you can go out there and check it out. Even with a pair of binoculars, it's just a blast to look through. So many stars, lots of nebula such as this, some beautiful globular clusters all through this area. It is a lot of fun. We're gonna get about 2 more exposures here. I'll give you a brief description if you don't already know what the additional information there is on the lower left of this window for our broadcast. Pull up the Trifid description again so that you can read some additional information here if you want. The information there, M20, of course, stands for Messier 20. It's the 20th object on Charles Messier's list. C8 is the type of telescope. It's a Celestron 8-inch aperture telescope that I am using. It is operating at about f3.8. I have 2 reducers on the scope to get it down to f3.8. Usually these scopes are f10. And that means that they have a narrower field of view and slower as far as optics go, which is great for an all-around visual instrument or planetary. But for this type of stuff that we're doing, you want to get a fast type of telescope. using focal reducers permit us to do that. So we're down to f3.8. LSX2 stands for Lodestar X2. It's the type of camera. We are using, actually, it's made by Starlight Express. And this camera is actually not even made to do what we're doing, but it's so sensitive that it just works fantastic for what we're doing. A gentleman by the name of Paul Shears created an absolutely wonderful program called Starlight Live that you can use with these cameras and to do electronically assisted astronomy as we are doing right now. And LPS is just, I'm using a light pollution suppression filter on the telescope. And that's pretty much the quick review there of the type of equipment that we are using. All right, so we are at our 10th stack here. Let me stop our exposure. I'm going to go ahead and save this image of M20, and then we're going to go up to, or I guess it would be down to another nebula. This one's going to be the Lagoon Nebula. So let's go ahead back. Let's get to our program once again. You can see the red circles are basically noting the Telred finder if you had a scope with such a finder. The bluish box there is our close to our field of view for our camera, at least. Now you can see our next object is going to be the Lagoon Nebula. It's quite large. We're probably not going to get all of it in the field of view, but we will go ahead and scoot down to it nonetheless and share it here live right here at the eyepiece. So hold on one second. We'll get that there, and we will start this up and go there. And let's see what we're going to get with a 45-second exposure for the Lagoon Nebula. Now this, of course, is Messier 8. And let me start the exposure up here. Okay, so 45-second exposure. Probably overkill, honestly, but let's see what we're going to do. I probably only need 30 seconds on something like this tonight, but we'll see. We'll call up our image display. That way you can track along the total exposure. It gives you kind of a countdown of the percentage there. And make sure that I do have stacking on so that we get a nice clean image as the series of stacks works. Almost up on our screen. And there it is. Okay. Oh, you know what? Actually, I've got to make a quick adjustment here. That's right. I forgot about that. So give me one moment. What we need to do is scoot the field of view a little bit down, it looks like. So give me 1 second here. Because I want to get in as much of this wonderful nebula as we can. So let's see if we can, oh, that's the wrong way again. This is just a 1 second exposure I use. So you can see that it's also associated with a pretty nice little star cluster there, just to the left, as you can see. It is very pretty through a pair of binoculars, wonderful through a rich field telescope, absolutely wonderful through a rich field telescope. You know what, that might be a little bit too far. Okay. I'm going to go with it right about there. Okay, so now that I got that centered up, let me make sure that I have the scope centered up too. Pretty much thinks where it's at. you know what? Let's do a 30-second exposure. Let's see where we're at with 30. I have chosen monochrome, absolutely. Not so much cost, but ease of use and personal preference. You know, color is fantastic, there's no doubt. But the sensitivity of monochrome is a little bit higher than a color camera. And indeed, doing what I'm doing here, the adjustments are easier on a monochrome camera than a color as well. It's just you have a lot more things to slide and move to get your color where you want it, etc. So I just prefer monochrome to do electronically assisted observing, Evan. All right, so we do have, however, I will say, when things on my work side get a little bit worked out, color camera will be very, very nice, especially for this type of stuff here when we're broadcasting live at the Eyepiece, because I know that that's what is going to get lots of the oohs and the ahs out there, is seeing it in color. So here is our view here, 30-second exposures, and you can kind of see we are, again, right there almost with the orientation of the picture that you see from the Sky Safari app there on the far left to what our live image is doing there on the far right. And I don't even have this thing stacking, so let me get this thing stacking, and we should get even a better image as it gets cleaned up. So this is 30 seconds. So this is a little bit brighter than the Trifid. And if we go ahead and go back to just our view of our Sky Safari app, our planetarium program, you will see they're really, really close in the same field of view, probably for a lot of folks that have a very, very wide field of view, rich field of view instrument. You're going to get maybe both of those in the same field of view. Maybe not, but they're going to be very, very close. And again, it's not too far away from Saturn, so right now it's very easy to find. We are looking due south pretty much towards our galaxy. And zoom in again to the lagoon, and let's go back to our live image. And there we are. We could easily have definitely use something that would even get us even a wider field of view. I mean, it's just, as I brighten this up, we are going to overexpose the core there a bit, but you will see clearly how the whole entire view is the nebula. I mean, it's just gorgeous. So let's scoot that down there. That dark vein comes through so well here when we adjust that down a little bit further. So it's a fine balance between contrast and detail that we're doing here. See, we can easily overblow the core here if we're not too careful. We want to get it a good balance of detail. I think that's satisfactory to me. And let's see here. So we are going to, wow, we have already been live almost 45 minutes. Gosh, time flies. I'm going to try to keep these episodes down to under an hour, just to keep it reasonable as far as time goes. So we're going to try to get as many objects in here as we can here. So we've got another 15 minutes, and I think one of my favorite objects we are going to be able to get to next. We get actually two more objects that we can go to. We've got two more nebula that we can go and look at that are very, very close to each other and to whereabouts we are in the night sky. And we will end this particular episode of At the Eyepiece on those two objects. So enjoy the Lagoon Nebula here. Again, we are looking towards our own galaxy, so this is definitely an object in our galaxy itself. And let's see if I can see how many light years away it is. It's about 4.3. Actually, I misquoted that. It's about 4,300 light years away. So, and actually they have some other estimates here too, 48 to 6,500 light years away. So some of these are, you know, they get close, but, you know, it's difficult. You're talking about vast differences and a lot of things that could throw off the measurements, especially when you're looking towards our own galaxy here. So let's see what we got. We got 9 stacks so far. Let me wait till we hit that nice round number 10. And we will go ahead and there we are. All right, so I am going to save our image. And then let's move on to the next object. Did not actually want to stop that from broadcasting here, but that's okay. All right, let's do that. Let's do that. Okay, so our next object is going to be, there's actually a couple of different names, the Omega Nebula, but also the Swan Nebula. This is going to be M17. So let's go ahead and bring up just a view of that for us so you get an idea of where we are in proximity to a couple of the other objects that we did. So again, we are still pretty much facing due south. Saturn now, you can see there, that's the brightest object towards the south. You see where we are with the Lagoon Nebula. We are going right up a little bit higher to our Omega Nebula or Swan Nebula, you can also call it. There we go. So one moment and we will slew to that object. This is another pretty good size. I'm going to do a quick exposure here of just 1 second to see about how we are framing this object. Looks just a little bit high again, so I'm going to bring just a tad down and then we're good. Okay, so next up is the Swan, or also called Omega, M17. So it was number 17 on Charles Messier's list of objects. We're going to do a 30-second exposure just to see what we can get with this particular emission nebula as well. And again, it's about 4,200 light years away. That's what they're estimating it to be. Let's call up our image for you so that you can also track and count down just how far we are here. Just about there, and bada bing, bada boom, there is the Swan Nebula. Now we have an upside down orientation to the Swan or the Omega, but you can, hopefully you can use your imagination to go ahead and see where they might be getting a swan swimming on water there with its neck, etc. But that is a great, great shot. That's 30 seconds, so not very long. Let's brighten this up a little bit more. There we go. I like that. Darken the background just a tad maybe. I tend to like my background not quite black, jet black, just my personal preference. So if it's coming through a little bit lighter for you, it's just my preference, that's all. But there is our Swan. We have that framed very, very well. So this is M17. Looks like it was cataloged in 1764, but looks like it would have been first noticed by Philippe Los de, what's that? Chezois. It's French, so I don't know how to pronounce that one. And it definitely is located in a very rich, dense area of our Milky Way indeed. This is going to be one that you can see in binoculars if you have a nice, good southern view. And again, I did not hit the stack button, so let me go ahead and hit stacking. Darken it just a bit here. Yeah, it's 30 seconds. And we're going to be close, but we'll run maybe a little bit of an hour over here because we are going to wrap up with one of my faves as far as nebula goes here. I think you will see why. Our observing session really has gone to the birds too here with the swan, and what will be next. You'll get the joke here in a moment. Now again, I want to emphasize when people watch this, don't think you have to have fancy equipment to go out there and enjoy astronomy. This is just so one way that we share our universe here like this online through the technology that's available to us. If you had a small enough scope, say 4-inch, 3-inch, whatever you might have, go out, you can see a lot of these wonders too just for yourself. All right, so that is 3 stacks. So we're going to let that build just a bit. Beautiful, beautiful nebula region here. And let's go back to our Sky Safari app here. If you have ever heard of the Orion Nebula, it is said here through this that M17 rivals the splendor of the Orion Nebula. So you can be the judge of that. And again, it's about 5,000 to 6,000 light years away. And we are looking pretty much south here, and this is, by the way, in the constellation Sagittarius. Couple more stacks. Interesting that my setup has a bit of a difficult time on southern objects. You know, I think we are going to go ahead and save this image with just 7. It's gorgeous as it is. So let me get that saved up. Okay, and the next object is going to be a surprise here. So I'm going to leave this up, but I'm going to turn off our Sky Safari app for a moment. So enjoy the eagle for a moment while we bring in our next object and our final object of this particular broadcast tonight right here at the Eyepiece. So hold on. You know what, I'm going to do a little bit longer exposure on this so that I remember, because this one will probably need it. So the next object that we are going to be looking at is the Eagle Nebula. Get it? See, that's why it's going to the birds, because we had the swan and the nebula. The Eagle Nebula now. Anyway, the Eagle Nebula, also the Star Queen Nebula, which honestly I have never heard anyone refer to it as that, so I'm not sure where that one is coming from. But this is the more difficult, I think, of the objects that we have seen thus far. So we'll wait to our... Look at that. We are just perfectly aligned too. Love it when a plan comes together. Look at that. There it is, the Eagle Nebula. Now you will remember the Hubble Space Telescope took a very famous image called the Pillars of Creation. That is basically what you're looking at right now, but live. So if we were to zoom in on this image part here, that is why they call it an eagle, because it kind of looks like an eagle with its talons and its wings flying. And if you notice, if we scroll down, I believe, yes indeed. So here is the famous image from the Hubble Space Telescope of the Pillars of Creation. And here is that image just to the right of us, of that view from Hubble, image of Hubble, and we have this live right now at the Eyepiece. How cool is that? Let me zoom out so we get the whole splendor again. Just a beautiful, beautiful image of this nebula. Now, as far as where we are looking in the night sky, let's go back to our Sky Safari Planetarium app. And this is the highest we've been through the evening thus far. As you can see, there's our Telluride finder. There is about where the Eagle Nebula is. Below that was the Omega or the Swan Nebula. And Saturn there at the bottom of your screen, hopefully you can make out that is where we started out with the Trifid Nebula there, at least on our nebulas for this evening. And we've hit quite a few. And there, of course, is the lagoon. We've also started with that one. And there's all four. So there is a span of all four of the objects. And there's our Messier 16, the Eagle Nebula. I'll let that go ahead and continue to stack, and you can enjoy this beautiful image. Brighten up just a tad here. Again, this is a beautiful object to see because you can see that it is actually within a open cluster there. So the open cluster, even with low power, smaller telescopes, you're going to be able to discern the open cluster. And with a little bit more scrutiny, making sure that your sky has some good transparency and you're not looking through as much light pollution as you can. So getting away from the city lights, etc., will definitely help you to see this object. You too will probably be able to make out some of the nebula. Will you see the eagle shape as it is here? Probably not, unless you're using larger aperture, but you might be able to have a hint of it visually, as obviously it'll be smaller scale, but you might actually be able to see something there. That's what is fun about visual astronomy. You can pop in different eyepieces, try to see objects using averted vision, etc. So you'll be able to see this as a hazy patch, no doubt, embedded within the star cluster itself. And then you want to really try to see the contrast there for the darkish nebula portion there that makes the eagle pop. We're going to wait for just a couple more stacks for this image, and then we will call it a night for At the Eyepiece. Now, please feel free, if you enjoy watching this, I'd love to hear your comments there in the comment section of the video. Of course, make sure that you please go ahead and subscribe. That way you can get alerts, etc., when we might be doing a live broadcast or of other videos that we post up. I am trying to do more actual videos with this channel, in addition to, of course, our podcast that you'll find that is automatically streamed up here from Spreaker.com. So you can get notifications of our videos that we post up. There's 8 stacks thus far. Oh, let me go back. Actually, you're not even seeing the image. Sorry about that. That's what happens when you have multiple windows, multiple monitors going, and 2 computers. You just kind of lose track. Sorry about that. So there is our 8 stacks thus far of 45-second exposures. I want to remind you, this is not astrophotography, okay? This is what has been called video astronomy before. It's still called video astronomy in many places. However, I prefer electronically assisted observing or electronically assisted astronomy. So we are seeing this image live. very different than what you will get from astrophotographers, which take lots and lots of images. They stack them like we're doing, but they usually take them many, many, many more. They usually go ahead and they take longer exposures. They take a number of other images with their camera and set up in order to get rid of any nasty effects from the optics, such as flats. They take out, they do what's called, they do bias images. They also do darks. We aren't doing any of those. We are just taking exposure and letting it stack, and then using some special software that allows us to share the image live. Plus, the astrophotographer folks, they bring it into another program that will stack them all, that will apply all these flats, biases, and darks, and then they might spend an hour or more really bringing out as much detail as possible in their image to make it look aesthetically beautiful, no doubt. And they do a fantastic job. But we're more interested in seeing these live and actually observing them. All right, so I think that is it for this episode of At the Eyepiece. Please feel free, like I said, to make sure you hit the subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up, a like. If you want us to share a particular object, maybe next time when we have clear skies, go ahead and leave it in the remarks as well. I'd love to hear from you. So here's wishing everyone plenty of clear skies so that we can all talk about it and see it next time right here at the Eyepiece. Thanks for watching, everyone.